So in the church, what we do is when a pastor is asked to be pastor of the church, 2 years after they're there, the district superintendent, if that's a new word for you, think bishop, comes, meets with the church board, probably bishop without the funny hat, and after 2 years, the question is to extend the pastoral relationship for the next 4 years, or to bring it to a church vote, and then if it's next 4 years, then it's done at every 4-year interval. We got off schedule a number of years ago, but this week was our 4-year review. There was about an 8-year period where I didn't have a review, but anyway. And district superintendent came, met with the board. We had a board meeting Tuesday night, and so for the pastoral relationship has been continued for the next 4 years, and so that's just where we are. It was a very good meeting on Tuesday, and so hope it's good news. Maybe some of you that I continue in this role for the next 4 years, unless something else happens. But anyway, I'm getting old. I'm on borrowed time now. So, but thank you. We're in Hebrews chapter 10 this morning. There's a passage here that is kind of well known. Let me just say some things. It's been a tough few years. There have been some high-profile cases of discouraging news. It seems that in many places, and I think this has largely been a bad trend, Christianity has become synonymous with some famous, high-profile leaders of really, really, really big churches. And we have seen many of these leaders publicly fail. In our own backyard, this has been the case. And faith then has become synonymous with what happens to these famous people. And I think something is amiss. Faith is not equated with famous leaders. It is expressed through everyone who claims Christ. We are not and never have been saved alone, but as a part of a larger body, and we need each other. The faith, as Brandon just said, is expressed more through what we do. Let me say, it's more through what we do than what I do. Because I can claim to be all this. I have moral purity. I don't use this language. I don't do this, and I don't do that. But if I treat people around me awfully, and if I don't love people, then all that's for naught. Hebrews chapter 10. This is, again, written in the shadow of some earth-shattering events. I think this was written probably in around 71 or 72 A.D. They have just seen Jerusalem be destroyed by Rome. I mean destroyed. And I think the believers here had a Jewish background, and it really shook them to their core. Imagine, remember how we felt watching the Twin Towers fall, and we're not even from New York. Stuff that we see all the time. And this was the center of their whole life. What happened at the temple, what happened in Jerusalem. And they've just seen it end. And will Rome stop? Or will Rome come find them? How possible is it even going to be to have this faith? Perhaps this is a perfect time to stop. And into this situation, Hebrews is written. Chapter 10, starting with verse 19. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, and by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body. And since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. So let us hold unswervingly to the hope that we profess. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. The first part is basically a quick summary of everything that has been said in Hebrews so far. In light of everything that Jesus did for us, the first reminder is our faith, our Christianity is really not of our doing. There was a view, we remember what Martin Luther was maybe fighting against back in the 1500s, this idea that there were things that we could do that could assure our eternal destination. We could perform certain acts and do it so well that we qualify, and if we don't, the people after us could maybe perform it so well or pay enough money. And if they just bought an indulgence, bought a get out of purgatory free card. Now, for the hundreds of years since then, that experience has kind of colored, I might say poisoned, our idea of what Paul's talking about, because that was never the case. No ancient Jew ever thought that you earned your way. If you kept the law good enough that somehow you qualified. They qualified because they were Jewish. They were God's chosen people. You remember the scene in Fiddler on the Roof where Tevye is praying and he says, I know we're your chosen people, Lord, but sometimes couldn't you have chosen someone else? They did the deeds. They performed the law. They lived in such a way as to maintain their favored status. It didn't create it. Sometimes we have veered close to this. We would say, oh yes, we are only part of God's people through grace, but you better perform everything just right. And so as I talked about a week or two ago, we had sometimes people who battled this. I'm in and then I'm out. I was doing good. Then I called my brother a pinhead and then now I'm out again. Now I got to ask forgiveness and all this stuff. And it's this bewildering thing. And I know you're not supposed to call your brother a pinhead, but my brother was a pinhead. And that is so hard to live in a house with such a pinhead. He's not now. I'm talking about then. And not be able to say it. Lord, you told me to be truthful and now I'm truthful and you get... We're the beneficiaries of what Christ has done. His death, His resurrection. Not my good deeds, not my good clothing, not my good language, not my good habits, not my good checkbook. It's He who made life possible. There's a confidence that comes from a personal relationship. It talked about having a great high priest, not in the day when just once a year the high priest would enter in my behalf, and only the priest could have this face-to-face encounter with God. Now, I can have a face-to-face relationship. Holy place was where God resided, and only that one representative in behalf of the people had this contact, but now it's available for all of us each and every day. And what I think the author of Hebrews would want us to know, that we have one who advocates for us. That was a previous sermon. Because he was tempted in every way like we are. So it's not a God that stands back, just waiting for us to slip up, but a God who knows what it's like and is actually walking with us and rooting for us and guiding us. So we can go and we can love others with confidence. But confidence is a tough thing to come by. Those are words that sound good, but all of us have that thing we remember. The words of a parent, you'll never amount to anything. The words on a playground, 4 eyes, pizza face, shorty, tubby, slim, string bean, you know all of them. In my neighborhood, there was Bryant, there was Billy, there was Danny. Not my brother Danny, Danny Sipes around the corner. Danny Sipes was called Slash because he had a birthmark right here. Billy was called Chicken Bone because every time Billy fell down, he broke his arm. Every time. We were playing flag football once. He was being quarterback. He just slipped on wet grass, fell down, got up, threw the football down. He goes, I'll be back. I got to go. I just broke my arm. It was like his fourth time. We remember the harsh words. We remember the thing. We remember the failure. We remember the thing that we think we should be ashamed about. We bring so much guilt sometimes that we carry around. I should have known better. You didn't know me back then. And sometimes we find it hard to get out from those things that stain us and impact us from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But I like this text. Let us draw near to God, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience. God has put the stuff from our past in His rearview mirror, so we should put it in our rearview mirror. The other times is sometimes we have been impacted legitimately with things that people have done to us. And we are so... those impacted us so deeply, we spend a lifetime trying to get out from under stuff that happened when we were 6 or 8 or 10. And sometimes we let that hang around as a ready excuse for things. You are right. Your mom should have been different. I agree with you. You are completely correct. My question is, how long are you going to let her have free rent in your head? How long are you going to let the mistakes of that be continued in your life? You're not that person anymore. God says you're not that person anymore. You're now a child of God. You're one of mine. You can get past that because I am past that. And I have better for you. And so I like this plea to these people in this very difficult time to live. Someone was talking to us. I was part of this conference about 2 weeks ago, and the speaker was talking about, just think, if you're just 20 years old, think of all the stuff that's happened in your lifetime. When you were a kid, you started off with 9/11, and then the financial crisis. And then they went down the line. And I'm thinking, that's true, but everybody, I don't care when you grew up, you can do that. Think if you grew up in 1960. Well, you're a kid. Kennedy was assassinated. Then RFK was assassinated. Then Martin Luther King was assassinated. And then you had the Vietnam War. And then you had the protests. We could do that almost any decade, and I could take you through that. Life can be difficult for anyone. My wife and I were talking this week. We were taking a walk, and we remembered just not that long ago, and some of you either bought a house or you refinanced, and you have, as part of your payment, you have this mortgage with 2-point-something%. And now it's back to 7%. And we go, oh my goodness. And yes, oh my goodness is the correct response. But we're old enough to remember 21%. 1979 and 1980 and 81. There's always parts of life when I think we just have to hold on and hold on. Maybe you're like me. Has this ever happened to you? You're on a road, you come, and all of a sudden you see all these cars backed up, and there's a train. And you see the train slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. And you sit there, I want to turn around. But I know if I turn around, the minute I do, I'll see the last car go by. And you wait and you wait and you wait, and all of a sudden I'm not waiting anymore. I'm turning around, and you get turned around in your rearview mirror. You see, oh, there's the last car. When am I going to learn just to be patient? It would have happened. How many times do we give up? How many times are we tempted to give up? Just to find that when all hope is lost, the problem is resolved. I wonder sometimes how many marriages end when holding on might have been another month or year. I wonder how many dreams are deferred because someone gives up too soon. One of my favorite quotes is Thomas Edison, after he invented the light bulb. He was chided because, well, you tried long enough. You tried like, I forget how many thousands of ways. And he goes, I didn't invent the light bulb. I just created 1,000 ways not to create a light bulb. So many times the difference between success and failure is getting up one more time. That's it, just one more time. So my plea to you, regardless of where you're at, is please don't give up. I don't care if your work is hard, if being a parent is hard, if being a kid is hard, if whatever's going on, I'm begging you, don't give up. You can overcome whatever you're facing right now. Despite adversity, despite the trend. It's not a trend, it's a headlong rush in our culture toward mediocrity. The temptation to rationalize every weakness. You simply cannot keep a resilient, good person down. So be resilient. Lock someone in a prison cell. You just might end up with a John Bunyan. Bury someone in deep snow in Valley Forge, and you end up with a George Washington. Raise someone in abject poverty, and you have an Abraham Lincoln. Strike someone down as a young man with paralysis, and you end up with a Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Make someone deaf, and you still have a Beethoven who wrote the 9th Symphony while deaf. My goodness. Call someone, and I'm being historical here. Call someone a slow learner, retarded, and as someone that cannot be educated, and you have an Albert Einstein. And also a Winston Churchill. Both have a very similar start. The key element in every one of these cases is resilience. The blessings, the rewards, the benefits of faith are often not immediate. I might even say most of the time are not immediate. All the things worthwhile that's worth sticking around for are not immediate. Oh, sure, there's some immediate. But the rewards of faithfulness are rarely seen in an hour. They are expressed often in terms of relationship, in terms of legacy, in terms of blessing over a long term. And of course, one great benefit is eternal life, and we don't see that until the end. The greatest results of faith are often things you rarely will see in this life. Lives touched, trajectories changed. I'm thinking of my Grandpa Ward's visitation. And there was a bunch of people that I never met that came by and wanted to talk to me about my grandpa, who in the Depression, how he gave me a job. He kept me going. He never got to see that. And there's this little verse here. Why should I hold on? It's tough. Jerusalem lies in ruins. Why should I hold on? Everything here, see, everybody's on the take. Everything seems to be corrupt. Is nothing just? And it says this: let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, because he who promised is faithful. I don't know what twists and turns you'll face in these next months and years, but I have read the final page of your final chapter. and it ends wonderfully if we hold on. But then it has one other very simple bit of instruction to us. And it says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. It's our other main responsibility. Yes, we're supposed to hold on for ourselves, but we're supposed to be acting in the benefits for each other here. So we must help others hold on. We must be a reason why others keep going. But we live in a world of self-involvement and entitlement and self-interest. I understand that. Every decision is seemingly made by almost everyone by how it affects me. We never get past that. We are even told, if you listen, we're even told by seemingly good people, the most important thing is learning to love yourself. Only by loving ourselves can we learn to love others. Just a casual glance around my culture, it's filled with people who are quite good at loving themselves. It's the other people they haven't gotten to yet. And I am firmly convinced of this. There is something deeply and terribly wrong with this advice. Because love does not develop or grow when it's turned inward. Love develops and grows when it's in relationship with other people. I believe that as a young man, the best thing that helped me grow and learn to love is being in relationship with my wife and being a dad. And now, continued development as a grandparent. And I wish that someone had told me how much fun being a grandpa was, because I'd have done this first if they'd have told me about it. This is not a sermon about being nice to other people. This is a sermon about how we relate to each other, especially within the church. We are responsible for each other. We act in each other's best interests. We celebrate with each other, even if that celebration doesn't really wash over to me. It's their raise, it's their promotion, it's their award. I can fully enjoy and smile because I'm in relationship with these people. Culturally, we are emerging, and it's going to take us a long time. We are emerging from an extended period of time where we made every decision. I'm not talking about any person here, I'm talking about culturally. I think people misunderstood me a little bit 2 years ago and a year and a half ago when I said some of these things. That the biggest danger we had is when we let a fear-based reaction to an idea of what personal safety meant overwhelm things that took generations to establish. And I'm telling you, can you just look? Society frayed quickly. The things you're seeing now, from the prices of stuff to the availability of stuff to the stuff, how much it takes now to get things, is all a result of that. We think that we take all this for granted and just think it always exists. Society and family and love always exist on a very fine edge. And it doesn't take that much to knock things off. Do a deep dive sometime. The year was 1177 BC. There's something called the Bronze Age collapse. You can look it up. There were 3 major powers, and they were all trading with each other. Everything was working. The Mycenaeans, the Hittites, and the Egyptians. And they were all good and flourishing. It had been a period of about 500 years of tremendous human advancement. And in a period of literally a decade, it all went away. And no one knows why. There doesn't seem to have been any volcanoes, doesn't seem to have been any big invasions. It just all collapsed. when we start to get culturally where we don't take care of each other and don't think in terms of we instead of just me, it doesn't take long for everything to go away. In a church, when all we're thinking about is me and myself and my relationship and me, and I don't actually love other people, it doesn't take long for things to fray. By every single measure, culturally, our children have been deeply harmed. People feel abandoned. You have people expressing highest levels of depression, highest levels of abuse, highest levels of everything that we've seen in some time. We need each other. Our ethic must be different. And the ethic is not what's best for me, it's what's best for you, what's best for us. When I'm busy trying to serve you and you're trying to serve me and we're trying to serve them and all we're doing is looking after each other, the stuff that can happen is immense. If all we're thinking about is me, it goes away pretty quick. Some of you, like me, have seen churches where people stop going because they don't like the color of the new carpet. Or they don't like the way the new pastor dresses. Or we bought the piano, and I can't believe we bought the piano when everybody knows we should have bought this first. The author of Hebrews tells us you cannot be the person that does that and then turn around and talk about your Christianity. Think about that just for a second. Because when you're doing that, you're putting me and my things over everybody else. This was about 12 years ago. It could have been 14. It was a Sunday night. Remember Sunday nights growing up? Remember when some of you went to college? Everybody on Sunday night called home. Well, why would you do that? Because Sunday night, the rates were like 40% of what they were the rest of the week. So everybody called home on Sunday night. So one time a week, you called mom when you remembered to. The habit, even after that, changed. I used to call my mom on Sunday night. This was a number of years ago, and I called mom and I said, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" And she went, "I'm fine." Well, I don't think so, Mom. What happened? I'm fine. Mom, you're not fine. This is how you were when I was 12 before you started throwing the pots into the cabinet. What's going on? Oh, you wouldn't understand. It was just awful. Well, Mom, this sounds pretty big. What happened? Church. Okay, Mom, what happened at church? Nothing. It's fine. Nothing is quite as bad as when a woman says everything's fine. I've learned that. But anyway. And so she said it's fine. And she goes, "Well, church today, you wouldn't understand." Well, what happened? We didn't have a choir. Well, why? We got a new music director, and he had a guitar. And that's when we're supposed to have music, and it was just noise. And then she said the following sentence. "Son, you wouldn't understand. Do you have any idea what it's like to go to church and hate the music?" "Mom, I got this one." Oddly enough, I know exactly how you feel. What do you do? Well, let me tell you what you told me. She didn't like that either. Because we're responsible for each other. I would still show up for church if they played nothing but country music. And I just got a cold chill up my spine when I said that. I would still show up for church. Lord, forgive me if I'm wrong here. Lord, if it was all hip hop. Because then there'd be no music in the church. So, I mean, that would be a musicless church, but I don't know what that's, but anyway. Because people were there. And I think back to people that had an impact on me. And I want to be a person that has impact on them. So my plea to you is twofold. And it's just what Hebrews says. I know life can get difficult. I'm begging you, hold on. I know it doesn't seems like there's no hope. I'm begging you, hold on. It'll get better. I'm begging you to hold on. And if you're struggling, tell someone you're struggling. Say, I don't know what I'm going to do. Tell somebody. All right? Let someone hug you and say it'll be all right. And next thing is, you are redeemed so you can be a blessing to other people. So be a blessing. We don't love by loving us first. We love by loving others first. And then that develops in us. That's what the author of Hebrews would want us to know.